Are you working on your author career but struggling to get that first book published? Does the goal of being an author seem too lofty? Or thoughts of having multiple books and making a full-time living are as fantastical as living in Cinderella's castle? Welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths, a podcast where aspiring authors can be heard. Join Stephen Schneider as he finds and talks to authors you may not know, but authors that have gotten their foot on the author career path. Hear what they've done to get there and where they want to go now. Settle back. It's time for a bit of inspiration and advice. Come listen to today's Discovered Wordsmith.
Today, I talk with Riley Toon, who has written in the fantasy and superhero genres. While he is looking at his next book and where to go with this series, he has a lot of insight into what it's like to write for two different genres and writing his first books and getting them out there while still having a full-time job. If you've been enjoying listening to all of these authors each week and learning about some new books, please take a moment to give a review for the podcast to help others discover it and help these authors find their audience. And now, here's Riley. Okay, well, then let's just get started. Riley, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking some time today for this. As we're recording it, it's the 4th of July. So here in the States, it's a holiday and both of us are still working. So there you go. Tell me, before we talk about your book and your writing, tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, your background, whatever you care to share.
Yeah, I live in North Carolina now, but originally I'm from a very, very small town in Virginia. To give a little bit of context to it, my hometown as of 2018, I haven't checked recently, but as of 2018, had less than 250 people in the town. So it was,
Wow.
yeah, very, very small. So when I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, it was like coming to LA for me. It was really, really, really big change. And I like it thus far, man. I'm more of a homebody, so writing is right up my alley. It makes it very easy for me. But outside of that, I have other little hobbies. I'm a big, big video gamer, weightlifter. Well, before COVID happened, so I used to work out pretty frequently. Uh, Pizza aficionado. Like, there's almost no type of pizza that I will not say no to.
So is Raleigh a big pizza community?
Not traditionally, but there are a lot of places that you can stumble across. Like, if I'm driving and I'm looking for like one place, and I stumble across a restaurant that serves pizza I haven't ate at, I'll make a mental note to try that before I leave, or at least get something to take home. Terrible for
Got
it.
it.
Terrible for it.
We had a friend that they came across a list of voted the best pizza place in every county in Ohio.
Wow.
And his goal was to visit all of them. So
that is a man I would like to hang out with. That is a
yeah.
that is a good adventure to go on.
So you mentioned video games. What video games do you like?
Once upon a time, I used to be a real big MMORPG character, a video game player. Back in early 2000s, maybe I used to play a game called City of Heroes.
I played that with friends.
Nice. I played City of Heroes and City of Villains for quite a while, man. I know about 5 years of my life was dedicated to that video game, and I was there all the way up until they pulled the plug on the game. But just context, I've been a big superhero fan for years, way before it was cool. So after I got off of the MMORPG fix, I realized, man, you're wasting. I was spending a lot of money. I was spending real life money just so I could get the fake money to buy the fake items in games. So I switched over to PlayStation, Xbox, and I play both religiously now. It helps me kind of get a break from the normal lockdown life. I play almost anything except for first person shooters.
Interesting.
The only first person shooter I've ever been like somewhat good at is a game called Borderlands. I was pretty good at that.
My stepson loves that game.
Fantastic game, and it's funny. It's funny, really colorful. But like those war games and Call of Duty style stuff, as popular as they are, I wish I could play them, but I just always end up in a corner and getting really confused because I can see nothing but my hands.
You're camping out, but not on purpose.
Right. A friend of mine is like, dude, this is just like real life. All you see is your hands in real life. I was like, I know, but it's not that easy for me to correlate the two. So I ended up, no, that I don't do it.
Well, I understand. I like some games. I don't play as much anymore. I don't really care for the modern FPS run, gun, shoot, and that's basically it's just a constant death match. And I say that as I played Doom 1 when it came out on a little laptop. So, I mean, I can proudly say I was there at the very beginnings of FPS FPS history, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and now look how far they've come.
You're right. So I assume you like City Heroes. You said you always like superheroes. That helped lead you into some of your writing because I noticed you had 2 series. Tell us a little bit about what led you into writing, and then I want to ask a bit about those series.
Yeah, sure. So believe it or not, I kind of stumbled into wanting to
Did it
write.
hurt?
No, by accident. So when I was in about 2005, I wanted to be an actor, which freaked my parents out because, as I said, we're from a small place in Virginia. And for some reason, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to move to LA and try to start acting. Parents hated the idea, and I was determined to do it anyway. And my mom told me, "It's like, hey, do you even know anything about acting?" And I was like, "No, outside of like the money profits that's going to come on the back end once I make it big, because that's what they all do."
Right.
I knew nothing, so I got this book and I started. It was like a self help book for people who want to be actors, and one of the sections in the book covered how to read a script. And I just found it very confusing. And I decided to help me understand how to read a script a little better, that I would try to write my own script. And once I wrote my own script, I remember I wrote a show called not a show, a script called To Be a Hitman, which was the typical apprentice plot, and it was like this retiring hitman, and he had to train the new guy who everyone really liked, and he personally hated the dude. And as I was writing this script that I ended up just doing nothing with, I fell in love for the feeling of writing. It made me feel very godlike. I was controlling this little world I created, and I didn't want to give that up. So I scrapped writing and immediately purchased a young adult novels for dummies book, and that's and that's how it started, and it slowly grew from there. I wrote quite a few books that were just utter trash before I even tried to publish my first novel.
So, do you think that some of your books you might go back and revisit screenwriting?
Mm, I've played around with it. I would like to, but I think it all depends on demand, especially where I'm at right now with writing. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but my first few books were self-published, and I did okay with those, and I have some stats and things like that. But now that I'm actively looking for representation for the next book I finish, I think the screen options may come later on down the road. The cool thing about it, though, now we're in an age where technology's at a place where you can do all this stuff on your own. Like you can go and rent like camera
Right.
equipment, and you have a couple of buddies, and you can do a lot of special effects. So you don't really have to have the big names behind it. So it's out there if I want to, but it depends on how the schedule goes.
Okay. Well, that leads me to a few questions. Let me ask this first. So, I noticed, like I said, you've got a fantasy series and a superhero series.
Mhm.
I stumbled, it didn't hurt. I stumbled across the superhero one, which I thought looked really interesting. Now that you've been doing this for a while, you may have heard or been told many of the times people say, hey, if you're going to write superhero, stick with it. Just write superhero.
Mhm.
Or if you're going to write fantasy, just write fantasy. And if you're going to start a series, write the series, get it out, finish it before moving on. But you kind of have not followed that. Do you feel you did that because that's what you really wanted to do, or you just felt it had to be done? Or do you feel maybe you should have done it differently? Or what was your thinking on that? Or was it just, hey, this is what I feel like?
If I could go back, I think I would do everything 100% the same, but the only thing I would change, so I guess I wouldn't do it 100% the same, is that my very first series, I would finish it. I would finish that first. So, a little backstory. When I first started writing, I wrote this superhero story. This is when I first started writing, like with ambitions to publish it and not just like playing around. I wrote this simple hero story called The Imperial Lords, and I wrote it relatively quickly. One of my close buddies at the time, we're still friends now. I gave him the book to be a beta reader, and every time I would follow up with him on how to like how he liked it, he would never respond to my texts, wouldn't answer my calls, and when I finally like cornered him in real life, I was like, "Dude, what the heck? You're it seems like you're ducking my calls, like you owe me money or something. Did you read the book?" Turns out he read the book and hated it. Like he just really didn't like it.
Uh,
And so at that point, I was like, okay, cool. I'll scrap the book. I scrapped that book, went back. I did a little bit more self help stuff, took some writing classes. And by writing classes, I mean, I looked at lectures on YouTube. And it, technology makes everything so easy, man. So I scrapped that and then I, developed a little bit more at the craft. And at one point, I was in Barnes and Noble and I was looking for a book to read, and I wanted something where the people in there could teleport. And the books that I did find, I didn't really like. And that kind of prompted me to write my first series, which was called Warper, which is just it's a story about teleporting assassins. And I thought I was like, you know what, this is cool. But then I also thought to myself, if they're assassins and they can teleport, their job is like freakishly easy. You get in, you get out, and you leave. And so I was trying to think of a way to make this really hard for them. And I came up with the idea, what if these teleporting assassins are hired to kill an immortal? And that's how that story kind of unfolded that way. And that book did okay, but at that same time, I still had this idea for a superhero story in the back of my head. And after I got a little bit more comfortable with, getting reviews and learning what people like and just my writing style in general, I went back to that very first story that I scrapped, took a lot of ideas from it, and put in some new ones. And then that story eventually became Paragon, which is my superhero series. And that very first book in the superhero series has been my best selling book to date. And it's loosely based off of the first one that my buddy just said was horrible trash. So the downside is that I'm a big fan of writing what I feel and writing what I have fun with. And so sometimes that does get in the way of what the people want. As you grow a little bit in the industry, well, for me anyway, when people like the book, it's great, but then they also assume you just have tons of time to write. And I have a day job. So I wrote Paragon, and then when I finally wrote the second book to Paragon, within a week, there were people leaving reviews, which I appreciate. But the reviews were like, man, I can't wait for the third book. I hope you're writing the third book. And I was like, man, I just got finished with this one. Like, I have no idea where I want the third book to even go yet. So sometimes you do have to walk the line between writing what's financially better for you and what the fans want versus following that gut instinct and just want to write what you like to write. And because I like to do a little bit of both, that very first book series, I have no idea when the third book in the trilogy is going to be done or when I'm going to even start writing it. It's one more book left, but because I enjoy writing the superhero series so much and I have this new project I'm working on, and the superhero series is giving me steady income as a side business, I just haven't had a chance to go back to that world yet from the first series. That would be the only thing I would change, long story short. I would finish it up, knock it out the way.
Okay. And that I love that because I think a lot of people are in the same situation and they feel like, oh, I've got to do this or I wish I could do this. And it's sometimes you have to just take your life as you have it
Right.
and do the best you can. Um, you did mention that you were hoping to pursue some traditional publishing as opposed to staying independent. Are you going to just go that route if you can, or are you going to do hybrid, or what's your thinking there, and why are you looking to switch that a bit?
I would like to do hybrid. So I say that because the first issue I have with being strictly traditional is I don't the publishing world is kind of funky, and sometimes If you get an agent, they may not want to revisit that previous series because they don't have the rights to that, and it's still tied up with stuff with Amazon, a lot of paperwork and blah blah blah. But despite that, this superhero series I've created, I have a lot of ideas for that story and how I want it to unfold. So the third book in that series, I've already plotted it out. I just have to write it. But I have ideas for prequels and spin-offs because this universe has been slowly evolving into this thing that I didn't even expect to happen. And a lot of times you interact with readers who may leave you a review and they may love the actual story, but then they're curious about what happened to this character or what are they doing. And slowly but surely, you start to get ideas. So even if I did land a traditional agent, I would still have to do the indie thing specifically for the superhero series. It does still give me the freedom to do what I want. Once you sign a contract, traditionally, I guess, and you get an agent, then you have to answer to like these publishing houses and so forth. A lot of the creative freedom you get kind of ventures off. You kind of have to do what's standard and makes people money, and a lot of extra hands get put in the cookie jar, so to speak. So I would do a mix of both, but the traditional avenue is it's merely just because I would have to do a little bit less of the footwork. So when you're indie, and you probably know this too, you have to do the writing, you have to have a whole little team under your belt. Someone to do the cover work, unless you do it yourself. Someone to do the editing, unless you do it yourself. Formatting, once again, unless you do it yourself. Marketing, audiobook stuff, working with Amazon on the back end. Like there's a lot of actual footwork on the back end outside of the writing. Um, Hopefully, if you get an agent, a lot of that stuff is taken off your plate. Now, some stuff you do still have to do, like you still have to market a little bit until you get a big name and things like that. But it does take a little bit off your plate and give you a little bit more room just to write and enjoy the process.
Got it. Okay. So we've kind of talked about publishing and your writing and mentioned the book a little bit. Let's maybe even backtrack a bit. Tell us about the books, what they're each about, because you've got two different series.
Mm.
Tell us what the storylines are a little bit, so people would know.
Yeah, so I've always been a fan of the anti-hero. I don't know why, but I've always been a fan of the guy who he does the right thing, but he takes a weird path to get there. And I never realized that about myself until I started watching those Riddick movies from Vin Diesel.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
love those.
Vin Diesel's the same guy in every movie, but I don't know why. But those Riddick movies, I was like, man, this guy is cool. Like he's clearly not the good guy, but he's doing the right thing, and I feel like that gave him a little bit more of an edge. So that's kind of like what I like to write about. So in Warper, the first book I wrote, I mentioned it were teleporting assassins that were hired to kill an immortal, and the story takes place from the center character who is the apprentice. So the actual contract in the book is not actually even his. He's still learning. The contract belongs to his teacher, who is a very well known figure. That's the people assume he's an assassin, but no one's actually like seen him or caught him. And he's teaching the main character, like, hey, this is what you do, and this is the process for killing and things like that. And then when he's going out to do recon, something happens to him and he never comes back. But now this plot is already afoot. Things are put into motion. And now suddenly, this apprentice who is just learning how to really teleport well and to get over that hump, he's suddenly the main person in this big plan to kill this immortal. And the only problem is that while he is cool with the teleporting part, he has an issue with killing. He's not comfortable with it, doesn't like the sight of blood, the whole thing. But when the story starts, he's not even supposed to be in this role. So we see how everything unfolds as he learns to come to grips with uh, the thing that he's literally born to do. And it's not a profession that he just fell in, but it's something he has to do. And as the story continues to unfold, they find out everything isn't what it seems, and there's a lot of lies and treachery, the whole thing that spans throughout the book. Um, and I really enjoyed the process writing it. I just enjoy this world more for the superhero series I have. And in the superhero series, once again, it's a person who's a little bit of an anti-hero. I always like the classic style comics, like the tights and and the capes and the kooky names and things like that, because that's what I grew up on. And everyone was clearly a hero or villain. So in the world that I created, almost everyone does either or. You're a hero or you're a villain, and usually people just do what their family did, and they all go to these schools to learn. But I was trying to avoid the whole Harry Potter-ish, X-Men-ish, kids in the high school thing. So my story kind of picks up when they're finishing school and they're going on their internships. And after their internships, they kind of decide if they want to be a hero or a villain. But the main character in this book, he is he's kind of a half breed. So his mom was a hero, his dad was a villain. They ended up at odds with each other and they kind of fell for each other. And the result was our main character in the story. Now, because of his origins, most people don't like him. They call him things like half breed and spawn and
Mm.
abomination, but he is unusually powerful. I thought it would be cool to make an OP character and then try to find a conflict that he couldn't solve just by being the baddest guy in the room. And so he's constantly trying to prove to one side that he's not a hero and to the other side that he's not a villain. Neither side really wants him, but neither side really wants the other side to have him. And so he goes on his internship anyway. And as he's going through his internships, for some reason, this serial killer emerges who is killing other people with powers. And he is suddenly found himself in a position that, maybe the only person that can stand up to this guy who's taking everyone down is the hero that nobody wants and the villain that everyone assumes he is. And that story kind of just turned on its own and became really successful. And to this day, I don't even know why. I didn't expect it to take off as it did. And then just almost overnight, I realized I sold a lot of like books and audiobooks. And then suddenly I was like, wait a minute, I've got to pay more people than I thought I would and things like that because I do audiobook. And the way that you have to pay for audiobook, you can either pay up front or you can split the royalties. And I usually pay up front, but this time I said, you know what, let's split the royalties because I didn't expect to get that many royalties. And yeah, I ended up paying my audio guy way more than I would have if I just paid up front.
Well, that's a good problem.
It is until you run the numbers. Once you
Well,
run the
yeah.
numbers, yeah, it was quite a bit, several thousand more than what he would have what he would have
Well,
paid.
that's good though, because I know there's a large uptick in audio, and I know there's demand for good audiobook voice actors.
Yeah,
So, if he liked doing it and made some money, then you got somebody that'll probably come back.
yeah, that's true. And
So,
especially right now with COVID, man, people can't really travel and stuff. The audiobook game is booming right now.
yeah, and that's another thing Joanna Penn talks a lot about. So, check some of her stuff out. You'll probably find a lot you like in there.
Nice.
So, the other series, the fantasy one,
Hmm.
what's that about a little bit?
That's the one with the teleporters. So it's only two.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay. So, you've got these two series, you've got your books. What plans do you have for the next book? Are you looking for a third for each of them, or are you looking at something completely different?
So as of right now, I want to do something different, but also I'm definitely doing a third for the superhero series, which is just my I call it my icon series because that's what the people inside the books, they're superpowered, they're called icons, and people with no powers are called voids. But it's kind of like a slur, so you don't supposed to say it to people in public. So the plan is that I actually outlined the complete third book for the Icon series, which hopefully should be done maybe mid next year. Because I have no social life really, and that was before COVID, I can actually write a book really quickly. After I outline it, I could probably knock out a good 100,000 words in maybe about a month and a half. Um, so it doesn't take long for me to write it. It's just like the editing process. That's where when the red ink comes out, that's when it gets kind of funky. So I have the third book outlined for that. I just need to start writing that one. The book that I am currently working on is the one I want to shop to an agent. I'm actually going to write that one first because, if I'm being honest with myself, it takes time to get an agent. So the time that I'm sending out query letters to agents and waiting for responses back, I could easily be writing that third book in the Icon series. So
Well,
my
that
plan,
makes sense. That's a good plan.
yeah, and that's also going to keep the money rolling in. So as I'm getting rejected from agent after agent, I can still be making money off of the Icon series. In regards to that first one with the teleporters going, I have no idea when I'm going to write that one. Um, it makes me feel bad to a certain degree. I don't have the time for it, and I don't want to go back to that world yet because I enjoy what I'm doing, which is uh which is sad for the people who may be looking for it, but it's I gotta write what I feel, man. Otherwise, if I force it, I'm just not gonna enjoy it.
And that's a lesson for everybody.
Hmm.
I know there's a group of people think out there, what's the big hot thing, let me write it. And I've also heard a lot of people feeling burnt out, can't even get up the energy to write.
Hmm.
A lot of times it's because they're writing something they really don't care about, that they're
Right.
really not passionate about.
And I think that's the only hiccup that I would see in the traditional space. Now, I haven't done a tremendous amount of research, but historically you can see it. Like when Harry Potter was really big, almost everybody who had a laptop was trying to write something about witches and wizards and things like that. When Twilight was really big, vampire books were just popping out of thin air. Even with 50 Shades of Grey, everyone was getting into that genre of writing. So they want you to write what's big in the industry right now. And luckily for me, superheroes are really big. Thanks, Marvel. I appreciate the movies
Right.
because people got teased for this stuff way back when. Like I saw that first Ghost Rider movie; it was horrible compared to what they're doing now. So
Right. Yeah.
like superheroes are big now, so that's why I've gotten lucky. But I kind of have to strike while the iron's hot. But um, that's the thing that I do worry about. If I do some reason land an agent, is having to write something that I really don't have a passion for, and that's when things will come to a head.
Right. So what are your favorite Marvel or DC or any superhero movies?
I'm I'm torn because I grew up liking DC. I grew up, Superman, Batman, Flash, the people that were easy access, because I was in the small town of Virginia. I didn't have that many options. But as I've gotten older, I really, really like Marvel. I like Marvel because they're heroes, but they got like real life problems. Like Spider-Man can save the world or help save the world, but he has a hard time paying that rent. Stuff like that.
Right.
Iron Man, filthy rich, fancy suits, horrible drinking problem, and he's a dick. Stuff like that. So
Right.
I really like the Marvel movies, the ones or Marvel characters, but the ones I have actually really liked. I've always enjoyed the Marvel Spider-Man movies. I really like the Tobey Maguire, the first one and the second one. Got kind of weird near the end. That scene when he's walking down the street dancing to the music and he's got the symbiote
Yes.
in him. Hey, yeah, that was that was a telltale sign that it was horrible for me. So I really like the Spider-Man movies. I'm not a huge Spider-Man fan, but Tobey Maguire movie did it for me. Really like that, and I really like the new Spider-Man movies. The ones in the middle, I really didn't do. Didn't like that. I really really enjoy the Incredible Hulk, but hate the movies. Um,
Yeah.
I really wish they could make a Hulk movie, but contract stuff they can't do that one. Um, Believe it or not, I am not a huge fan of the Ant Man movies.
Okay.
Not a fan of the first two Thor movies. The first Iron Man movie, I will say, is probably going to be my favorite because it's the one that kind of broke us into it. And then Blade, believe it or not, I feel like those Blade movies still hold up pretty well. The first
And
two, anyway.
Blade's coming back.
He is.
So,
I kind of I have mixed feelings about that though because Wesley Snipes at one point was in conversations to play Blade because he's old but he's relatively healthy and he can still do the fighting and stuff like that. And Marvel was in conversations with him just because of the fan following. But then the story I read anyway, Mahershala Ali called up Marvel because he is who he is. You can just call those people up, I guess, or got his agent to.
right.
And they said, "Hey, man, he wants to get in this Marvel movie stuff. He heard you were doing Blade, and next thing you know, he's Blade." So,
Well, I heard that there's a possibility Wesley Snipes might still be like the mentor character, might still be in it,
I
or
saw that in the rumor
a
mills
past
too.
Blade.
And
Yeah,
I'm hoping that they do find a role for him as just like a nod to the original fans.
yeah. If nothing else, heck, even put have them in suspended animation or something. Like show it for some future tease.
Right. See,
Um,
I would like that. I would like to see them remake Ghost Rider because I think that it was cool for the time, the first one anyway, but then it got kind of funky. I know they did it for the TV show, and I
yes,
enjoyed them on the TV show, Agents of Shield. So
the modern version
mhm.
of Ghost Rider.
Yep, I
Yeah,
really enjoyed that character. They've earned a lot of my time and dollars. Even the movies that I really didn't like, I show up to anyway, just so I
right.
can keep everything going. Like I didn't like any of the Guardians of the Galaxy, but I seen them all. It's
Really,
yeah, I
because our
didn't.
family we like those. I like the lighthearted humor and comedy
If you took
mostly.
out, we have this argument in my house. If you take out Groot and uh what is his name, Rocket, if you take them out, the movie's just not as fun for me.
Right. Yeah. Well, Groot is Vin Diesel, so
That's what
we've
it
talked a lot
is.
about him
We know I
today.
like him because it's the same voice.
Yeah.
The Inhumans TV show. Eh, it
Yeah.
was
That
yeah. Marvel
I
messes
agree.
up too. They mess
Yeah.
up too. No one's above it.
Uh, so besides movies, growing up now, what are your favorite like books and what are your favorite authors? What's inspired you for your writing?
Yeah, I have a unique blend for them. One of the
Which is
writers,
great.
yeah, it is because it helps you get a little bit of a feel for everything. Brandon Sanderson is a big fantasy guy that I really enjoy. Um, I like his high fantasy a little bit more than like his urban fantasy, but he's a cool guy, and also he is the person who taught the lectures that I've watched on YouTube.
Oh
So
yeah, those are good.
they are fantastic, man, and I think it's cool that they're putting it out there for like free, the whole course. So I really enjoyed those. Almost anything Brandon Sanderson does. Um, I am a big fan of Neil Gaiman, believe it or not. I only
Oh, I love Neil Gaiman.
He has such a unique twist on things that it's like I can only imagine what the brainstorming is like in his head because a lot of the ideas that the stuff that he writes, if I had to think about it myself, I'd say, man, that's not going to be a good story. But then he writes it and it comes out fantastic. One of the first books I read from Neil Gaiman was the Graveyard Book. Have you read that or heard of that?
Yes. Yes, with the little kid
Yeah,
and all the ghosts.
yeah. It's from what I understand, the way he described it is it's the Jungle Book, but in a grave. And it seems like, man, that's not going to work, but it's a fantastic book and not overly creepy because I read that when I was young. Um, but those books are great. I like him. I like Pierce Brown. He wrote the Red Rising series. Um, One book that I've been trying to get into, and I just it was a real slow burn for me, so I kind of just stopped. Was the Patrick Rothfuss book? Was it The Name of the Wind?
Name of the Wind. Yes, that's actually one of my absolute favorites. I thought it was slow also.
That's what everyone
And,
keeps telling me. Just
but
give it
I
time,
kind of
Riley.
well, I it's weird. I almost put it down. I persevered,
Hmm.
and then it like clicked, and I started just devouring it.
Oh,
Actually, the same thing happened to me with American Gods.
mm,
I had a
another
hard
good
time
Neil
getting
Gaiman
into
one.
it. Yes, very good one.
I never
So
saw that TV show though.
I've watched part of it. It's pretty good. I just don't watch a whole lot of TV anymore. It seems.
All right, no, no, smart. Avoid it if you can, man, because the news will
Well,
there.
very true. I think it's more just a matter of limited time and things I'd rather prioritize. So TV
Yeah, that
gets
makes
pushed
sense.
off.
But the book
Usually
was
it's
good.
something my wife. Yes, the book was amazing. So there you go. People should read all of those.
I might have to go. I'll revisit Name in the Wind now because another thing that was bothering me with that one too, when I realized it was a slow burn, I kind of looked into it. I was like, how many? I know it's a series of sorts. How many are out there that I'm going to have to take my fancy? Because reviews can
Two.
only be but so wrong. And like he had a
There's
ton of
only
reviews online,
two.
but the time frame
Yeah.
in between those two, it's
Well,
it's
yeah.
so broad.
Well,
And
yeah, the third one, everyone keeps telling him to write, and he hasn't.
see, and
But
that's what
they're like
scares me. I don't want to fall
1,500
in love
pages or something.
and I don't want to fall in love and then wait a decade for the next
Right.
novel. But it's in my audiobook collection because I actually don't do a lot of reading, mainly for the same reasons that you don't do a lot of TV. I got a lot of stuff going on, and it's
Right.
easier for me to, listen to an audiobook during my commute or when I'm working out or if I'm cleaning the house, things like that, trying to parent, all that fun stuff because I have a 2-year-old, so he's kind of just bopping
Oh,
around. Yeah, no,
that
terrible.
sounds fun. I remember that.
He's just bopping around, so it's easier for me to listen to audiobooks. And I used to have a ton of them because back in the day, and by back in the day I mean a couple years ago. Are any of your books on audio?
I do listen to some audiobooks.
Okay.
There's a couple I go back to quite often. One is Odd Thomas by Dean Koontz.
Okay.
I've never actually read the book. I got a copy of the um, audiobook, and the guy reading it, the voice is great. So I ended up going out and getting the whole series. I love those.
Now,
And I
was
do
there a
listen to
TV
a
show
few
for that or
others.
a movie? I feel like.
There was a movie with Anton Yeshkin or whatever his name was, the guy that played Chekhov in the new Star Wars or Star Trek movies,
Mm.
the one that got crushed by the Toyota and died, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's
the
weird.
movie had some issues. It was almost not brought into the States, and it's okay. It's not too awfully bad. It could have been worse, but the book is amazing.
And then that's how it always happens. So many books that you just really like and enjoy, then they make them a movie, and you're like horrible. I don't know if you're familiar with the Artemis Fowl series by Ian Colfer. I
Yes, in fact, we've got three of them sitting right here, two of which are audiobooks, and we watched the movie the other night.
oh God. So like I
Didn't
loved the series.
uh
Listened to
huh.
the whole thing quite frequently. I kind of branched off because now he has books out with his other relatives of Artemis. I don't want to ruin the book for you. I mean, ruin the rest of the series. But he has them out with other foul relatives that are doing things. So when I saw that they were making a movie, I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome because it's a fantastic. The very first book was really cool because I liked it because most of the book takes place just in a house and
Hmm.
in fantasy it's kind of hard to see stuff like that. There's another book that has a similar thing. The whole story takes place on a wall, like this really huge long wall where people live on now. But for the Artemis Fowl, when I finally saw the trailer, I was like, wait a minute, that's not what happens in the book. But I know
Oh,
usually movies kind of branch away from the book, so I gave it a little bit of leeway, and it came on Disney Plus, so it was free. I got about 15 minutes in, and I was like, you know what, I can't do it. I kept finding so many things that they just said, you know what, we're doing what we want to do. Take our money, writer, and enjoy it. And
right.
so
Yeah,
I couldn't.
the books look good, and they've, like I said, we've got three of them here on our shelf ready to read. I didn't really care for the movie. I was disappointed because the trailer looked good.
Right.
Now, my 12-year-old stepson loved it and thought it was a great movie,
Hmm.
but we have a hard time getting him to actually read. Most of the time, the best we can do is like trade paperbacks for comics.
Gotcha.
He'll read some of that.
No, the books are fantastic, man. If you want a nice, fun, easy read, really good characters too. That's the big
No,
thing.
I'll have to mention my wife definitely wanted to read those. She discovered some new Scottish Highlander type stories, and
Mm,
she read one book in like 2 days, and has been reading the second one this weekend. So
nice. I'll definitely I'm gonna look into the Thomas ones though.
I love the well, I love the first three, and for me, it went a little downhill after that. I think he didn't have plans for like a 7-book series, but it went well. So
Hmm.
it feels to me like he kind of uh, wrote the rest of them to get a longer series because it was doing so well and people wanted it.
Yeah.
But I didn't get the right feel.
That's
I do have one. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think that's a common crux that people hit when they have like contracts to listen to and to like
Yeah.
if the book is very very popular, you just like, okay, well, I don't want to just throw this money away, and
Right.
the
I
powers that
would.
be aren't going to let you do it. I think Ready Player One, I don't know if you saw the movie but or read the book,
Yes.
but
I did both.
yeah, and they actually weren't that bad from each other. They got a little bit from the book, but nothing too crazy. But
Right.
when I read the book and then saw the movie, I felt like it was intended to be just a standalone novel. I felt like it wrapped everything up. It ended well, and then it kind of just skyrocketed and took off. And next thing I know, hey, there's a second Ready Player One book coming out, and I was like, well, what's he doing that for? He wrapped it up pretty good. I don't see a reason why. Like, what else can happen? And so now I feel like they're trying to force all of the next level stuff in there just because it was very successful, and nostalgia is a real big thing right now. So they're going to really try to
Yes.
cash in on that one, and I'm
Very
scared it's
much
going to be
so.
terrible.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I do have another question. You have a YouTube channel. You
Do
do some videos for writers. Tell us
Mhm.
a little bit about that.
So YouTube was another random fork in the road for me to determine if I really liked it or if it was something that I didn't have the passion for. So I thought when I started my YouTube channel, and I haven't put a video up in like maybe a year. Um, Parenting, man, life takes a hold of you, and you don't have
Right.
time for some things. But a lot of the YouTube videos I found were pretty like common. So you could see the same people or the same conversation, the same topic being discussed by like numerous people. And so it was really hard to put out original content. So even with some of the videos, my goal was to give information to the people who needed it and to make it as quick as possible. It was a small YouTube channel. I wasn't doing it to try to like get big or get famous. I wasn't trying to get like to the point where hopefully I can get like ad revenue dollars so it didn't have to be over 10 minutes. It was just quick and to the point, giving them some references, my points of views, and even giving the people who looked at the videos a little bit of insight onto things that some people kind of hide from the world. Like one of my videos was just talking about like, how much money I made from a book versus how much money I had to spend to get the book published. Another video I think was talking about, the benefits of doing audio and how much money you can make even if you spend a lot up front. And a lot of booktubers is what they call them, or author tubers. I don't think they give those kind of details. One of my books, through a lot of greasing palms and requests, got put into a Barnes and Noble store, and I thought that was really cool. A lot of indie authors don't have that luxury, so I made a video talking about that and the steps that I took that other people can take. And most of the feedback has been pretty cool. Like every now and again, even though I haven't put a video up in like maybe a year or a little bit more, a little bit less, I'll still get a random subscriber who subscribes to the channel, and that makes me feel like, even after all this time, 2 years or so, these videos are still holding up well, and some people are still finding good information for what I'm putting out. I ended up stopping mainly one because I get very busy now between writing, the daytime job, the parenting gig. That became very busy, but then also I felt like I was getting to a point that I was going to be putting out videos just to put out videos. And if you follow a lot of booktubers that have monster followings, a lot of times what they do, they'll put out almost the exact same video, but they'll just,
Right.
tweak a little bit here, tweak a little bit there, and they put them up 3 months apart. And it's the same thing for the most part. My top 10 favorite, blah, 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 or my top 10 least favorite, blah, blah, blah. And it just becomes very apparent to me. And I didn't want to do that. And then I have met other people who are in the YouTube space that are kind of small, and they ran into the same problem. But instead of just taking a pause on it like I did, they shifted. So it went from being strictly for writers to now maybe it's writers and do it yourself tutorials, or maybe now it's focusing towards writers and book reviews, or maybe now it's writers and daily vlogs and how I apply my makeup, things like that to stay relevant. And I just didn't want to spend the energy on trying to just stay in the landscape to get clicks and things like that. It's the same reason I didn't venture into the podcast world, because I assume podcasting takes a lot of little work on the back end, and I just want
Yes.
to write, man. I just keep it easy.
Well, I love that you're trying these and that you're realizing this is what I don't want to do or not. And things like I'm publishing now, I want to look at traditional. I think a lot of authors sometimes get stuck like, oh, I have to do this. And like you said, it shows, this is not a good video. This is not a good blog post. This isn't a good book or story, because, they want to write romance, but this is military sci-fi because it's hot,
Right.
definitely can show. And I've seen that myself, not for myself, but, of other people. It's much easier to analyze other people.
Oh yeah, big time.
Okay. So Riley, tell us one more time what name of your book is and where we can find you online.
Yeah, my very very first series. If you're looking for more of the high fantasy style, um, cloak and dagger assassins type thing, you can look up Warper. It's going to be Warper Origins, and you can find that at RileyTune.com. That's RileyTune.com. And if you're more into the urban fantasy, if Marvel and DC is your thing, and you're interested in jumping into a world where superheroes run around day to day, heroes and villains clashing with a little bit of political awareness and social standings, you can look up Paragon, an Icon story. And the second part of the book is called Omega, an Icon story. And that can also be found at RileyTune.com.
Great. Well, Riley, I appreciate you taking the time. It's really been great talking to you. Hopefully I can follow up in 6 months to a year and find out how things are going, your writing, and how things have progressed. I'd love to talk to you again.
Yeah, man. Fingers crossed. Let's hope for the best, man. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, especially on a holiday.
Hey, yeah. Most of my family's still asleep, so
Oh
this
yeah.
all worked out well.
Cool deal, man.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate the time, Riley.
All right. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Enjoy your holiday and have fun with your son.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to Discovered Wordsmiths. Come back next week and listen to another author discuss the road they've traveled, and maybe, sometime in the near future, it might be you.